Marcel Salomon was a young child during the war years. He and his family were forced to flee from their home in Luxembourg and endured many hardships before reaching Sosua. I am honored to invite Mr. Marcel Salomon to tell his story.
I ask first forgiveness because I'm a little emotional. Like my wife said, I knew you were going to start. I put my glasses on and bring that up, and we'll be in good shape. A lot of things that were said, I had written also, but I don't need to repeat. But I'm so very honored to be here in front of Your Excellency, Honorable Ambassador Alexandre de la Costa, distinguished guests and ambassadors from all over, and family and friends. I'm so honored to speak at this gathering commemorating 75th anniversary of the arrival of Jewish people that were plucked from the horrors of the Holocaust to be rescued and received by the warm and welcoming arms of the Dominican Republic under the leadership of President Rafael Trujillo and Ayad Molina. They did not only open their doors, but devised a plan to allocate valuable resources and to help the Joint Distribution Committee to build a vibrant community under the auspices of what was then formed the Dominican Republic Settlement Association. My father in Luxembourg had a shoe repair shop, married a beautiful Jewish girl from Luxembourg, and lived with two brothers, mother and my mother's mother, and who came from Minsk, occupied Russia, and one older brother, me and one older brother. We lived a very happy life and had a wonderful school there. My father was born in Lodz, Poland, and ran away when he was being persecuted during the pogroms. He escaped underneath a train till he wound up in Luxembourg. Fleeing from the pogroms after Kristallnacht, my father, may he rest in peace, saw what was coming, and he said to everybody, it's time to leave. Staying would not be safe. He saw the future, knew just as King Solomon said, we had to flee, save our lives. My uncles and grandmother laughed at my father and said, no one's going to touch us. We are living in a neutral country. There's nothing going to happen to us here. In 1940, as my father wanted, we all saw the Nazis enter Luxembourg. My brother and I had to wear the Jewish star, and the first action of the Luxembourgers was putting a sign on my father's shoe store, Juden nicht betreten. Jews do not purchase there. We experienced a number of scares, but finally were contacted by the Joint, and we were picked as possible candidates for the Dominican Republic. The road to rescue was far from smooth. Many close encounters and horrors ahead, and many challenges of trying to make sure that we are safe, including the need to hide several times. A number of times we had to run away in small towns. Despite the great period of fear, my parents gave us a sense of hope, only to know later that they were inside a total despair and fear for themselves. Yet, at the end, we were given a glimpse of redemption. We were chosen. The JDC, Joint Distribution Committee, chose us to escape from the claws of evil. From there, we were instructed to board a bus and would be transported to Paris. And from there, by train to Lisbon, and to catch a boat to the United States, and from there on to Sosua. Adolf Eichmann, at that time, may his memory be forgotten, proclaimed any Jew still remaining by October 1941 would be shipped eastward. We all knew what that meant. Many more experiences occurred till we finally made it to Paris. There we were loaded on a 6-car train to travel through Spain to Lisbon, where a ship would be waiting for us. 6 train cars. The first 3 were women, children, expecting mothers and families, and the next 3 were young married couples and singles. My father, mother, and brother were in the first car. From what my father recalled, very comfortable to say that, not very comfortable to say the least. The train started out in the direction of Spain, Portugal, and we arrived at a border town called Villa Formosa. We made a stop there, but no one was allowed to get out. There were bars on the windows and we could not buy drinks or food. We had been there for at least 10 days. We could not leave the train even for toilet use. We were immediately moved to a dead track and disconnected from the engine. One woman died in childbirth, and both of them died, and we were not permitted to bury them for over 24 hours. At which time a small group chosen by the Nazis under heavy guard allowed the corpses to be buried properly. We had practically completely run out of food and water, and my father, having been a shoe repairman in Luxembourg, bought diamonds and put them inside of the soles so that he could have money to buy things. And he bought a bottle of dirty water to feed my brother and myself. No one was prepared for these conditions, and no one should ever face them again. After sitting in the cars and tracks for a number of days, we heard what sounded like an engine and started moving again. Most people were exalted and happy, and they thought we finally would get to Lisbon and get out, but instead we headed back to France. It was about 2 o'clock in the morning. It was pitch dark, and when the train suddenly stopped, my father looked out of the window and saw lighted sign, Gurs, G-U-R-S. After an hour's wait, a number of Gestapo approached the train, and after opening the sliding door, started to yell, Raus, meaning get out. And the men on the train approached them and asked them not to yell as the children were sleeping. One of the fathers, Ernst Pollack, was knocked out with a rifle butt, and the Gestapo officer, covering his nose, looked into the car while someone shined a spotlight. He jumped out in disgust, went to the second car, saw the same thing. Went to the third car, saw the same thing again. Finally, he screamed at the top of his voice, Wir sind nicht ein Kindergarten. We are not a kindergarten here. Zurück. I've got to editorialize here. I'm convinced that the hand of God was involved in that movement. Okay. We later learned that Gurs was a deportation camp from where Jews were deported to the Lodz ghetto and other death camps. I am convinced that Hashem, the Almighty, wanted me to stand here today and give witness to what happened then. We continue to Camp Bayonne, where many more incidents occurred that were no less miracles that I really don't have the time to explain this morning, but will be written up in the very near future in the number of books that I'm trying to write. From Bayonne, we finally did get to Lisbon, where we boarded a ship called Muzinho in the direction of New York. The United States, who assembled the Evian Conference, refused to let us into the country. We had to wait almost 3 months in Ellis Island, where from behind fences we would look at the New York skyline and the Statue of Liberty. Then we boarded a liner called the Algonquin. By the way, Muzinho, on the way back to Europe, was torpedoed and sunk. The Algonquin took us to Puerto Plata, in the northern part of this tropical paradise, the Dominican Republic. We loaded onto buses and finally arrived in Sosua. The Dominican Republic was warm, beautiful. We spent the first few days in barracks, then we were given a house in a section called Bella Vista. There was a communal kitchen where my mother helped out and the children were taken to a kindergarten. Sosua, green fields, palm trees, fruit trees, one of the most beautiful beaches in the world, to this day, one of the most beautiful beaches in the world. Incredible how, as a child, I remember the first encounter with the local people who swam with us, embraced us, and we were part of their family. They embodied for us the most beautiful and true sense of true Jewish value, achnasat orchim, literally meaning bringing in guests. My father, being a shoemaker, became a saddle maker. My mother, a cook. And my brother and I went to school. The one thing that was strange and took time to get accustomed to was coming from the cold European climate, we had to get used to having mosquito nets over our beds. We had dances, reunions, and many meetings. After 6 months, we got a farm in Laguna, and as the ambassador, His Excellency, said, we've got a 40-hectare farm, 10 cows for the head of the family, 2 cows for each child, 1 cow for the mother. We had 3 horses, a pigsty, yes, a pigsty, with about 5 pigs, chickens, ducks, and I had a beautiful dog called Teddy that used to chase the car when I went to school and waited for me when I returned from school. We had a little forest, and on the other side was a private beach. We did not use it very much, but we did belong to the cooperative Silka that picked up our milk and our cattle. We had a theater. Now this is not that well documented. We had a theater where movies were shown. We only had 1 projector, so we waited between the reels, and there was time to run around and have fun with everyone. My father in Poland and Luxembourg was connected to the Yiddish theater, produced, directed, acted, and was the makeup man and the main actor, main star, of a number of Jewish plays, Lovke Maladiet, the Rumänische Chasanen, Motke der Dieb, and he performed the Moritz Schwartz famous monologue, Achazun HaShikr. I don't know how many of you have it. Huh? We, my brother and I, went to Escuela Cristóbal Colón, later renamed after the teacher, Professor Hess, who was the first to marry a local girl. From the grip of evil, we were given a worry-free life. After the war, through the Red Cross, we found out that my grandmother and 2 uncles were shipped and murdered into the Lodz ghetto 3 days after we left. And they said, no, don't go. We're in a neutral country. How can we ever repay the incredible act of the Dominican people? How do you say thank you to those who had the privilege to act as the merciful hand of God? What I can say is that I am here today, but I stand here before you, prouder than ever, no longer a child living a blissful life, but a father of 7 wonderful children, a grandfather of 17 beautiful grandchildren, and a great-granddaughter. And finally, I'm standing here before you in the land to where my forefathers had yearned to return to for 2,000 years, to the land where my grandmother and uncles, along with 6 million Jews, were denied to see. Today I stand before you in this great monument of Jewish continuity with my lovely wife of 43 years, Ruchama, and my family, because the Dominican Republic opened its arms to welcome us when no one else in the world did. En mi corazón siempre seré dominicano. Gracias.